up, Colts Nation, man? We got a big episode today. This is episode 4, September 14th, man. And I'm your host, Van Kemp. This is the Toss and Horseshoe podcast. I got my cousin Hayden Kemp up here, and we are joined by a special guest. Usually it's two folks just talking Colts, but we got James Boyd from The Athletic covering the Colts, man. So happy to have you on the show, James.
Yeah, great for you all reached out. Obviously, it's a crazy start to my, career of covering the Colts, but just thankful for the opportunity. Anytime anybody reaches out, I try to get back to them because I know if the roles are reversed, I would want them to, pick up that call from me or that DM. And honestly, that's journalism in a sense. Like I've reached out to players and coaches and agents and whatever, and you always want them to hit you back. So anytime I can do that, I definitely want to do it.
Yeah, man. Thank you for joining again, dude. I mean, your story is kind of crazy. We are kind of offline chatting, man. So I'd love for, give you a minute to, give us the life of James, man. How'd you start? Where were you at? I know you were Pacers for a little bit, covered the Pacers, but if you want to start from scratch, let the Colts Nation know.
Yeah, so I'm from Romeoville, Illinois, which is why my Twitter name is Romeoville Kid. It was a troll because everyone from where I'm from says they're from Chicago. Because it makes you sound cooler, or I guess it makes you sound tougher. But I grew up in a nice suburb. Like I didn't grow up hard, nothing like that at all. And I think anybody who does that is kind of fake to me. So I did it as a joke in college. I changed my Twitter name, Romeoville Kid, this long, weird name, and it kind of just stuck after that. And so since then, I knew I wasn't good enough to keep playing sports after high school. I wasn't delusional. I wasn't one of those kids who I'm going D1. Like I knew this was it. And so I got into sports writing in college. My first beat ever was men's gymnastics. My sophomore junior year, yes. All those dudes are buff and in leotards and all that. That will humble you when you're talking to guys that are ripped and way more, in shape than you. And then from there, it kind of just took off to the point where I was able to eventually get to men's basketball, get to football. And then my first job out of college was covering high school sports for the Times of Northwest Indiana, a newspaper up in the region, as we call it.
Yeah.
Love that place. My heart is still there in a sense. They're the place that gave me my first shot. And then after that, I went back to my school to cover Illinois athletics. That's where I graduated from. And then I ended up getting hired to cover the Pacers for Indy Star. And then I went and got hired to cover the Colts for the Athletic. And it sounds like a lot because it is a lot. I want to say, at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of 2021, I was still doing high school sports. So it all kind of just took off pretty fast. And every time I look up, I'm doing something I dreamed of. And so I'm very grateful for it. Yeah. Never shy to talk about it. Never, ashamed to admit that, I don't know, I get not nervous, but I get excited about the opportunity to see different places, see different players, talk to coaches you've seen on TV. And I think one of the weirdest things is even like JT, you see JT on TV every Sunday, and then you see him in person. It's like, oh, that's JT. And it's like, oh, that's my job to talk to him. So it's a cool platform, man.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's a crazy story. Starting from the bottom, now we're here, right? I mean,
literally.
Dated on the song, but man, you're getting there, man. That's awesome. We're happy to have you on, man. And hearing your story, hearing your stuff on Twitter, even, man, you got good insights, and that's a big platform for me to stay updated with the Colts. So y'all want to give James a follow, man. It's right there on the bottom. So show him some love, Colts Nation. I'm sure you already have, but for y'all's reference, man. But let's dive right into it. Week 1, first NFL game for James is what I heard. I heard he brought the rookie guy that nobody'd seen a tie before in the booth, and we saw a tie, man. So kind of your input from the inside, right? I can watch it on NFL Sunday Ticket all day, Red Zone, whatever. But your insights, to week 1, man. We'd love to kind of hear that.
Man, so I figured it would not be as easy of a game as it had been in years past, just because so many changes with the Colts. However, I did not expect them to be down 20-3 going into the fourth quarter. I thought it was a pathetic performance up until the fourth quarter. They looked like they had a hangover from Jacksonville. Honestly, it looked like Jacksonville 2.0. I remember sitting at home last year watching that, or last season rather, watching that and just scrolling through my timeline and seeing everyone just freaking out. And then I'm in this seat in Houston, and I'm like, wait a second, like, why is this still happening? What, this is supposed to be different. Like, this is supposed to be Matt Ryan and the guys. So I thought that they played pathetically and very poorly to start. But then they woke up, and in my opinion, because the Texans aren't a very good team, they're able to escape with the draw with the tie, whatever you want to call it. But I do think they're fortunate to not have a loss because at the end of the day, they're still tied for first in the AFC South, which is it would happen that way, right? Every other team in the division will lose. So it's funny because you didn't win, but you're still first place with the Texans. Mm-hmm. However, I think the biggest takeaway was once they cleaned up some stuff, you started to see like what the team could possibly do with Matt Ryan. Obviously, JT is a beast. And then defensively, they woke up. EJ Speed got his first sack, and it was a strip sack. It was a huge play. I think that was the play that saved the game. I think if he doesn't get that turnover, they don't have enough time to come back. Mm-hmm. But overall, it was weird, man. I was walking around the locker room, and my assignment was to like do a story on them being tied for the first time in Indianapolis history. And then for franchise history, it was the first time since they were in Baltimore, which was like 1982. Sheesh. So and then that's the other thing. When you got to look up all these weird random stats, you know you have a weird day on your hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was trolling the guys, asking all of them like, hey, how does it feel to be undefeated but you're winless? Yeah. How does it feel to walk off the field and be in this limbo? And all of them are saying like it feels sort of like a loss. But to me, it's still obviously better than a loss statistically and what the records say. But I do think they have to come out with more energy, more precision against Jacksonville. But overall, just a weird game. I mean, you got Matt Ryan. He's 37. The last time the Colts had a tie, he wasn't even born. So that lets you know how rare that is. It was a crazy day.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Hayden?
Yeah, so obviously we had 517 total yards, 20 points. Mm-hmm. That should be about – I mean, that's 5 times down the field and some change. That should at least be 40. 37, right?
Yeah, for sure.
9 goal-to-go drives and then 17 red zones. We got 25 points, right? So I don't call myself a pessimist, right? Van is the.
I'm optimistic, Colts fan. Hey, I love everybody. I love anybody wearing blue.
Yeah,
I'm a spade is a spade kind of guy, right? If we play like that, again, I overlooked the Texans, and Van was right about that. And I can admit that. That clearly shows you can't overlook anybody, right? They have in my opinion, defense wins championships. We all know that. Basketball, I'm a big basketball guy, Laker fan. Don't like LeBron, but I'm a Laker fan. Defense will always win championships. Lovie Smith, defensive guy. That defense was stout, right? Frank Reich, being an offensively minded, we'll say, guy. If this does not work out with Matt Ryan, we can no longer blame the quarterback. We can't, because if Carson Wentz is balling out in Washington and Matt Ryan is not doing what he did in Atlanta, that's not a quarterback thing. That's not a – Phillip Rivers did okay, right? But there's a common denominator here. You know what I mean?
I do think that the seat could get hot for the Colts if they don't make the playoffs, and depending on how they don't make the playoffs. And I thought it was a little not hot, but I thought it was something to keep in the back of your mind was that performance against Houston. They had changed so much of the training camp, later starts. They were going at about noon to get their bodies right, doing all this research on how, like, if they start at this time, it's more like a game setting. Their bodies will be ready, all this other analytical stuff, and you come out and lay an egg. So I do think that, Frank Reich owned it like he always does. I think he's a guy who owns it. Obviously, it doesn't matter if you own it or not in this league if you're not producing. Exactly. However, I do think that there's a lot more games to be played, so I won't, jump ship just yet. I get the frustration. However, I think the biggest thing, and I wrote about this actually, it'll be out tomorrow on The Athletic, it's like you got to have other guys make plays besides JT and Pitt. Like, they had a bunch of yards, and part of that too is like you're trying to come back and you're really trying to, a couple of those were just throwing it, just to get first downs or get yardage. Although they did give to JT a lot too, even though they were down, which lets you know how good he is. But I mean, you got the Ashton Dunlin drop, you got the Alec Pierce drop. You catch those are 2 touchdowns on 2 different drives. Yep. And like you said, you're looking for more points. That's 14 right there. So instead of a 20-20 game, you're winning 34-20 or whatever. So I thought after the Alec Pierce drop, the game just got really, really weird and stagnant. And it felt like the lights were a little too bright for the guys who are not named JT or Pitt. So I do think that's an area that I'm sure you guys talked about a lot, like the wide receiver group. Yep. It's not a strong one, in my opinion, outside of Pitt. The offensive line had their moments where they didn't look, all that strong either. So I think that there are question marks that, will need to be answered or at least accounted for in weeks to come.
Yeah, and go ahead, Aiden.
One more thing about that, right? Doolin's not dropping that pass 9 times out of 10. That did get hit out of his hand.
That was a good
that was a hell of a defensive play, right?
Got to bring that in.
And I don't know how well you followed him last year. Was it Michael Bagley, kicker from Miami, filled in for Hot Rod, perfect. Then we released him. And now we have 2 people on a practice squad that we just signed. Why not just go back to Bagley? If we knew he was reliable last year, did a damn good job. I have his stats pulled up, or I did, sorry, at one point. He's been better than Hot Rod. But so why do we we're putting our faith into people, like you said. Yes, they're going to make plays. You can't just jump ship. But like you said, if you're not producing, this is the NFL. Chris Ballard doesn't mess around.
Next man up.
Kick you to the curb quick. And
I think that's the entire NFL. Like I think it's a more cutthroat league than the NBA from what I've covered, just because I feel like, injuries happen too. So like you're more expendable and stuff like that. But I think in regards to like who they brought in as far as kickers, I know they brought in Chase, and I believe the other guys, his name is Lucas. These are 2 guys I think that they vetted pretty seriously. And also Chase has the history of being in Indy, and he was pretty good when he was here.
When he covered for Vinatieri, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, it's funny. I went to college with Chase. He's an Illinois guy. He's like the Big Ten or kicker of the year or whatever. Obviously, no one cares about what you did in college, though. So who cares?
Big boys play on Sunday. Big boys play on Sunday.
I mean, if that was the case, Hot Rod would still be here. But I think the biggest thing for them is just I think that they vetted it a lot more than maybe we see on the outside. So we can say, how come you didn't go get this guy? How come you didn't go get that guy? And I'm sure there's conversations behind the scenes where you're like, oh, that would make sense. Oh, that's why they did that. So I try not to pass too much judgment until I see the result, because I think it's a results-based league. And I think for us as viewers, like even though I'm a reporter and I'm around the team a lot more than the average person, I still have to assess what I see. Now, if you bring in Chase, or you bring in Lucas, and these guys are able to put it through the uprights, you're all good. If they're not, then you're basically going to have to answer for why you didn't, I guess, shift, or like you said, why didn't you stick with the guy you had last year? Why didn't you stick with these people that have proven that they can do it? It seems like they let this Hot Rod thing kind of linger over the last few years, and it came back to bite them, not as badly as it could, because it wasn't a loss, it was a tie. However, I start to wonder, man, like kickers aren't that easy to find. So I feel like you should have addressed it, in the offseason well in advance. So that's one early season twist that I think could really factor in. I mean, imagine being the kicker that they just signed, and you go down to Jacksonville, you haven't won there since 2014, and you got to kick a 45-yarder to win it, and you miss. Then what?
We're not blaming him, though, right?
Because
you got to remember, historically speaking, like to your point, nowadays, NFL kickers are fresh out of college. Before that, they were going to soccer teams. They were going outside of the NFL and collegiate level for kickers because, I mean, we've all followed college kickers. Holy shit. Right? Like, like I said, one in a few. But with Sanchez being out, he was always our kickoff guy. And so back in the day as well, the field goal kickers were the kickoff guys. And we saw that against the Texans. Two, were they back to back? I don't remember.
Yeah, so they were both in the fourth, right?
Fourth, it was the fourth quarter, and actually it was the fourth quarter, and then the one to start overtime.
Yeah, start on the 40.
Eliminated. So Hot Rod, if he's not used to that, but again, like you said, big boys play on Sunday. Buckle the fuck up and man up. Yeah. Now's your time to shine, right? Again, I'm not one for excuses. I never have been. It was nice to have you when we had you, right? But now you need to step up. And like you said, to your point, if one of these guys, if the guy if he was good at kickoffs, that's important. Field position is super critical. Super critical, especially since, the banner fell and T.Y. Hilton may no longer be with us. But you don't have to touch on that.
I mean, that's another thing is like,
you know, like we need points.
You do. And I know my colleague Zach Kiefer tweeted it out. He's like, T.Y. would have caught those two. Definitely would have caught the one that Allen dropped. So I think that there were some nerves there, some jitters or whatever you want to call it. But overall, a lot can be not forgiven, but sort of built on if you go out and handle your business in Jacksonville, which to me is one of like the oddest streaks because Jacksonville hasn't been good, but they just can't win there. It's such a weird thing. I talked to my
favorites now too for some reason.
Yeah, and like it's a weird game. Like it's a weird setting. Naheem Hines was saying like, I'm going into year 5 and like I've never won in Jacksonville. Like I don't even know what that feels like.
Andrew Luck didn't. I mean,
right. So and that was a weird game. I think it was like a 6-0 game or something. So I don't know like what kind of bad juju's down there. Maybe I don't know. When I go down there, I'll discover it and see what it is. But I think that it is a huge game, mainly because, as you all know, 5 of their first 7 are divisional games. So you wasted one, in my opinion, against Houston, even though you didn't lose it. that I feel like the tie could either help you or bite you, in week 17, week 18.
Yep.
But I think you cannot lose against Jacksonville
Nope.
and then go into week 3 and have Kansas City come in here and
Yeah.
expect to be a playoff team. I think that would be a really, really rough start. Now, granted, the Colts have started rough in years past and come back. But again, with it being so front loaded with divisional games, I think you just can't waste these opportunities.
Yeah, and that was big with Frank Reich in the offseason, right? Let's come out hot. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But here's a veteran quarterback dropping he fumbled 4 times. I mean, right? It's just like, it's kind of concerning, right? So it's back to the offense. And also we'll get on the defense in a little bit, but in terms of, we were talking about TY and all that stuff, in terms of that wide receiver core, what's kind of the stuff you're hearing? Obviously, Alec Pierce out with concussions and symptoms today, I think it was.
Yep.
But who I'm excited about, Michael Strawn. I mean, are you hearing like a little bit? He might have a little bit more, more snaps come week 2, or he's going to kind of fill in that void, or is it maybe Doolin? Just kind of your insight from the locker room perspective.
Yeah, so I think they're a little tight-lipped. They never talk about like who could play, and I get it, like cutting reasons and stuff like that. But I do think Strawn is a player who offers just another big body, similar to Pitt. Like and to me, it's kind of surprising to see him come along so fast in a sense. Like he was out, for a good portion of camp due to the knee injury, comes back and just hasn't missed a beat. So I think that, talking to him today, I talked to him as well, and he's just saying like, man, I think that he's like, I don't feel like we have to like be like super, human or anything like that. We just have to give teams another option to consider outside of Pitt, So I think that, as he comes back, as Paris comes back, maybe there can be something said about them making some plays down the stretch they can build on just confidence-wise because they haven't played and build on that. But I do think it's an area of concern. Like, I think you're banking on a lot of guys who haven't proven it to prove it all at the same time. So that's my only concern. It's like, okay, if Strawn steps up, great. If Paris steps up, great. If Ashton steps up, great. If Alex steps – but, like, do you expect all 4 to step up?
Exactly.
Like, that's my thing.
Cox too.
Like you expect all of them to have a breakout year or to have the year. That's the one thing where I feel like, again, if we get into week 7, week 8, week 9, and the wide receiver room isn't really producing outside of Pittman, you're going to look back and say this is another area you should have addressed more seriously in the offseason.
Yeah. All chips in on the wide receiver spot from what Chris Ballard's saying, man. I mean,
he said they'd have to grow up fast, and that's kind of been ringing in my head because I'm like,
they better grow up by week 2.
Yeah,
they better grow by week 2.
Odell Beckham Jr. is how we solve that problem.
Yeah.
Well, he's got to get healthy, man. He's got to get healthy, and obviously he's going to have some suitors there. He might want to go back to LA. Nothing wrong with living in LA and winning.
He's an LA guy. I mean, he's got the flash. I mean, that would be a long shot. I would expect him to bring back TY before OBJ, but the sky's the limit. I mean, if Ballard's got his chips in, I mean, look at him in the 3rd round draft. I mean, he's got Darius. He drafted Darius. I mean, he's got an eye for stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So if he's got all his, eggs in one basket in this wide receiver core, I mean, the team's going to get behind it. It's just a matter of that confidence. You nailed it right on the head. Like, they haven't proven nothing yet. So this confidence level needs to come quick, and they need to grow up quick. And I mean, I'm optimistic about it, Mr. Optimistic Colts fan, right? But
T.Y. got released for a reason too, right?
Yeah.
Chris Ballard's he's playing chess, and we're all playing checkers right now.
Yeah. I think again they're always working things behind the scenes. I do think the T.Y. thing is probably a bit overstated by fans to a certain extent. I don't think that there's anything imminent going with that because I truly believe if he wanted to be here, he could be like right now. Yeah. I just think that it's one of those things where they just can't come to an agreement, or maybe he just doesn't want to be in this environment anymore. I don't know. But I think that that's something that's a little more out there than other options. And I think that overall, you've kind of made your bet in a sense. Like, obviously, you can always tweak your roster, but these are the guys that you chose to ride with. So you're going to really have to hope that these guys step up. And even today, I asked Reich, like, hey, Frank, with Alec, in protocols and potentially him being out against Jacksonville, how much pressure does that put on the other guys to step up? And he's like, oh, I'm not worried, and I think that they're going to be fine. We're going to be in good shape. And I'm like, yes, I get that. You're a coach. You're supposed to say all the things that are the correct things to say.
Yeah.
Like us, we can say, no, you're not going to be in good shape. You weren't in good shape last week. So we'll see. Like you said, they moved the ball, which is encouraging, but you got to punch it in and make the plays that, to me, are the ones you show on highlights. Like, no one's going to show the play where you picked up the first down in the second quarter. They're going to show you if he scored the touchdown.
Yep.
So
they're not going to show a 3rd and 10. They're going to show
you need the point,
Alec
but it all
Pierce
matters.
tiptoeing Marvin Harrison style in the corner. I mean,
that's also why we moved Hines to slot receiver now slightly, right? That's what he said in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting more from Hines. I was expecting more from Hines last week.
I thought he was pretty good throughout the air. He had his opportunity. I think he had like 5 or 6 catches, like 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But the running with him was a little weird. When him and JT were in together, it looked a little stale. But I think that's also getting used to like shaping the offense around Matt Ryan and what he likes to do, and also shifting some things around. So I knew it wasn't going to look like great. They weren't going to smash Houston in week 1. However, I do think it should be cleaner. And even the snap thing was just weird. I don't expect
37, however old Matt Ryan is. He's
I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
No, that's an easy fix is what I'll say. Even the check down, that was an interception by Hughes. I mean, that's something Matt Ryan, he's a grown man, right? He can fix that.
And to touch on that a little bit, I think it was an errant throw. I think he would agree. But it also was a pretty great play. Like, you can live in a certain sense with, like, I mean, even if you throw that pick, but they catch the 2 touchdowns and do whatever else, they win the game going away, and it's not really that big of a deal. So I thought that Matt Ryan in that 4th quarter looked like the guy you wanted to go out, and be your quarterback. Like, he looked good. He was crisp. They were moving the ball. They had some up-tempo in there. They looked like they looked like a different team than they did when they started. So I hope, I can't say I hope because I'm the reporter, but I would expect them to hope that it carries over to next week, and it should. I think that when you have a guy who's going to be a future Hall of Famer, I don't expect him to have 3 or 4 drop snaps 2 weeks in a row. I mean, otherwise, no questions about, can this guy do this? Which I think that he can, and Matt's like the prototypical quarterback. He says all the right things. He does the right things, and I think that he's going to have his guys ready. It just comes down to squeezing that football.
I got all the confidence in Matt Ryan, man. I mean, it was a good performance, and it's just going to take time a little bit, unfortunately. But like I said, fast start to the season, we got to produce. But that brings me to the next point, man. We had some big news Saturday. Quentin Nelson, 4-year, $80 million guaranteed, or $20 million guaranteed, $80 million total, man. Like, big cues there for the long haul. From the O-line, man. I mean, with obviously JT 160 plus, right? I mean, they obviously performed with that. Most of that's JT, but I had some concerns, to be honest. Braden Smith, a little bit on that offensive tackle side. And this is my golden question, man. When is Rayman going to start? I mean,
that's the question,
that was a bad performance by Braden Smith. I mean, what's your take on it?
Just keep in mind, like, Ryman's working on the left tackle spot. So him and Pryor are kind of like, in that spot. I think that Matt Pryor is a starter right now. Frank Reich has doubled down on that.
Yeah.
I do think that there could possibly be a path for Ryman to get in there if there's still some shakiness at that left tackle spot. But Braden, I just think that, I don't know what it was. Like, in that first half, he just looked out of it. Like, the speed from the edge was getting him. He had the false start. Like, it was a very weird game for him. And I think that he has to be better. They have to be better. I mean, you cannot expect Matt Ryan to be, hit 7 times every week. Like, he's 37 years old. You don't want any quarterback to get hit that much, but definitely not him. And I think that once they settled in a little bit, it looked better. Like, it was early. It was a lot of, poor, I think, just football technique and stuff like that. However, as to your point, when they needed to run the ball, they needed to get some lanes open. They did, and JT obviously helps with a lot of that. But he had a lot of lanes to run through because they were doing the dirty work in the trenches. Yep. So it's something to be proud of in a sense, because most teams are not going to be able to hand it to their running back when they're down 14 points or whatever in the 4th quarter and expect to be able to get first downs and keep the defense honest. So that's something that that's encouraging. But that was a weird performance from him, and something that I think that he's going to have to address, or they're going to have to address situation. I thought that was a really, I won't say it's like absolutely bad, but it was bad in some stretches. I was like, whoa, like, you're really, struggling over there. I mean, it looked like it was speed more than anything. Like, if you just got off that edge, you had a chance to get to the quarterback. So we'll see. But JT and Pitt saved the day. You just can't rely on them to save the day every week. That's my thing. Like, of course, you want to have that luxury where you you got a dude on your team. But I mean, JT had 35 touches. You can't expect him to have 35 touches in 17 games over 18 course season because even if you did make the playoffs at that point, he's going to be so banged up, and at that point, it's gonna stack up at some point. Like you have, I don't care what anybody says, you can be the most conditioned guy ever. Hits matter. You don't want him to take all these hits now and not be the JT, top 5 player in the league or whatever that he is when it comes time to win these games the most.
Exactly, man.
That's why I was always confused about the Marlon Mack release. Like, that was Van's favorite running back. He was the
he was the guy though. I mean,
poor JT. And then same thing with Matt Ryan threw 50 times, 37 years old. If I'm 30 years old, if I went out there and threw 50 times, I probably would be drinking out of a straw and not be able to pick my cup up. Like, it would hurt.
Yeah.
And so all those things mattered. Took a dive out of Carson Wentz's playbook and just dove for the first down. That's risky business, right? We invested all this money. Same Ellen, him being hurt. We can't afford to lose our quarterbacks, right? Like the workload matters big time. And Pittman, for me, I was telling Van, last year he had some critical drops. And he stepped up. He's the big-time player we have now. And he looks damn good, way better than what he did last year.
Yeah, man. He looks like a beast.
But he's still in his second year.
Yeah, third year.
Yeah, third year.
But he looks legit. He looks, I mean, he was like that in camp. From what everyone told me, when I got to camp, a little bit later than everyone else and watched him, he was like that. He was just that dude. Yeah. He looked like that dude on Sunday. And again, talking to him, he had like this quote where he's, we're talking to him about the game, his performance. He's like, yeah, I let one slant get away from me. I can't let that happen. I got to get all of those. And obviously you like that mentality from a fan perspective, from a coach perspective, from a teammate perspective. But as a reporter, I'm thinking, trying to be objective. You had 9 catches for 121. Somebody else has to step up besides you and make it. Someone else has to catch the ball. Someone else has to get open. Now, I do think it's a luxury to have him, and he's going to have a breakout year. I think that he could possibly even be a Pro Bowler just because of the connection he's already got with Matt. But you have to know, and you guys know this is not rocket science, better teams are going to bracket you. Better teams are going to stack the box against JT, and better teams are going to have more talent to stop both of you. So I think that as long as they're able to have someone else just at least alleviate some pressure in a sense, it can keep these defenses honest because Pitt is the truth. He looks like the real deal, man. He can catch every route. And he's a little bigger than most wide receivers. He's got some thickness to him. And I thought the play, even when they threw it to him in the flat and he, breaks the tackle and dives in, it was basically like just get your best player the ball in space and let him be better than the other dude. So
he's chasing the bag too. He's chasing the bag, and he's probably going to get paid after the season. So he's coming out big.
And they're going to have to pay him. I mean,
you
cannot. I mean, and they've been good about that. As you said, they gave Quentin Nelson money. Darius Leonard's on a $100 million contract.
Kenny Moore needs to get paid.
Right. And then I don't know. I think Kenny.
I don't know if they'll let him go, but hey, that segues us right in. Hayden's Mr. Defense, man. So what was your take on week 1? I mean, with the defense, we just, How
do you think Stephen Gilmore did in particular? Because I know we're in the zone now.
I thought Stephon was pretty sound. It just seemed like he had a quiet day because with most great corners, you just don't throw it to him that often. I thought that when they did throw it to him, it's like the ball had no chance of being there. He had some sound plays. Interesting about him is like being around him a little bit and just talking to him a couple times during press conferences and stuff. The way he plays is the complete opposite of like how he is as a human being. Like he is so more or less like boring. Like he's just so even and quiet and like, most like cornerbacks, like most cornerbacks, even wide receivers, like whenever like skill guys are usually like more personality driven, I feel like, but he's like just cerebral and just calm. And I think that's a good thing to have when you have a guy who's he's seen pretty much every coverage. He's been in every coverage and he trusts his instincts. So he looked good. I thought that Kenny Moore struggled a little bit,
a couple of PIs. I mean,
questionable PI on one of them. I was like, this is
that was, I don't think, what was it? The second one was kind of questionable.
I was like, okay,
come on, let him play ball, man.
Home field advantage, man.
Yeah. That's what they all say at every arena. You come here and they call one on somebody else against the Chiefs or something. You're gonna have Patrick Mahomes saying it's home field advantage.
Yeah. What I was surprised with, Isaiah Rodgers didn't take one defensive snap. I mean, that he had all the hype going into this year, right? Hey, he's gonna have a big play in this defense, all this jazz surrounding him, and he didn't take one snap. I mean, that was concerning a little bit. I mean, is it some injury? I don't see him on the reports, anything like that. You don't hear anything about.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see if the time that he missed in camp, because he was out for a pretty decent amount of time, if that caught up with him to a certain extent. But he is a player that usually has a knack for getting the ball. So we'll see. Obviously, a small sample size from that first game. Yep. There could be some tweaks coming up. But I thought just overall, the secondary, they got to be able to communicate better, recognize coverages better. I thought that the 2 O.J. Howard touchdowns were
Blackman kind of leaving them wide open.
Yeah, I thought those were blown coverages where you didn't recognize what was going on. Like, I didn't think that they were necessarily obviously it was a great play call from the Texans. Anytime you call a play and you can confuse the defense and get a touchdown, it's great. But I thought that it was a little weird that it happened twice. It was like the same play, just in different sides of the field. So that was something they have to obviously address. And Gus Bradley said that they have to step up on defense and do better with recognizing what's going on. And I think up front, they have to be able to get more pressure. Like, you brought Unique here and Ngakoue to be, a force. And
kind of quiet. I mean, he was in there, but he's kind of quiet. I mean,
but he was putting on pressure. He just never got the ball like that. But he was there.
Exactly. But I think that on the flip side, you had some other guys who got a taste of big plays. Kwity Paye in overtime. He was huge. I asked Gus Bradley about him, and he's like, he's playing probably with the most confidence he's had in his career. And he looks like it. Obviously, those two plays don't happen if he's not the one making them.
Exactly.
And then EJ Speed getting his first, getting some snaps in there, getting his first sack, which again changed the game. I mean, he drilled, the quarterback, and I was like, wow, this is why I never played football like that. Like, it really hurt.
Yeah,
but
that'll put you down.
Yeah, I just think that there were some signs of life in that fourth quarter and I keep going back to that fourth quarter because if you're the Colts, you kind of want to erase whatever happened before that and use that tape, that film, to build on what you want to do going forward. Because again, you cannot come out that sluggish against good teams. Nope. And one, win, and two, call yourself a good team. I mean, did they look like a playoff team to you through the first 3 quarters? No, I was like, what is this? So I thought I was expected to be covering a pretty good team. So I think that the most annoying thing about the whole tie is, like, for the rest of the season with the record, I got to go 0-1 or whatever it is in 1.
Pain in the ass, to be honest. Pain in the ass.
Like, even with Frank Reich, no matter where he goes, how long his career is, he's always going to have that 1 at the end of his record that everyone's going to have to remember. But luckily for me, I can tell him I was there and I saw it firsthand. So
that's what you get when you get a new coordinator. To the point of Marlon Mack, Frank Reich came in, he never played. Certain people are just system players. So Isaiah Rodgers could be a stud for the old system, right? Gus Bradley may not like him. It is what it is. Now, do I think it's a waste of talent? 100%. Sure. Everybody can be utilized, especially since Isaiah Rodgers didn't have a bad year last year at all. I thought he was a damn good player. You know what I mean? We have to be able to utilize that. At least, I can't speak for the coaching staff, right? I'm sitting here in my garage. They're the play calling and stuff like that. But every fan has their own opinion. I just think for a very long time, and again, to the history of it, we've always been an offensively driven team. We've always been a score. Defense just carries on. Now it's starting to look like our defense is carrying us, and the Colts culture is not used to that at all. So the problem that I think is we don't have an identity yet. Now, we want Matt Ryan and JT to be the identity, sure, but like you said, weeks 7, 8, 9, 10 on, good luck with that load. He's no Derrick Henry because he's not that big.
Yeah, I think a big part of that identity, and again, it's just one game. Although it was a weird game, it's just one.
Sure,
it's Shaquille Leonard. You're missing your guy in the middle, your heartbeat. They've given us another vague update today. One thing I will say, it's not that vague. He was able to practice in full pads today. I believe last week when we asked him about that, he was not in full pads. So that's an encouraging sign. That's a step forward. I believe we'll get a chance to talk to him tomorrow. So obviously, whenever he says anything, we'll tweet that out or post that wherever. But I think that he's inching closer to being back. And whenever he is available to come back, whether it's this week or next week or whenever, he's going to bring a lot of that identity, a lot of that force, a lot of that viciousness that you hope to kind of get through without him, but you can't replicate what Shaquille brings. I mean, he's a beast. He's arguably the best linebacker in football when he's I can't even say when he's healthy. The guy played unhealthy for the last few years and was
ankle back, and he's still top 100. I mean, he's baller.
if he's
his leadership,
pain
man.
free,
I mean,
if he's truly
leadership.
pain free with the leadership he brings, the experience he brings, that swagger, that energy that he brings. I mean, the guy is the loudest person, around. That's what
I mean, the video's high. You know, I mean, his personality is just contagious.
So I'll give you guys a story. I was talking. I did a story on this during camp. So he was when they had the joint practices with the Detroit Lions. Shaq was on the sideline with like this play call sheet, and he's sitting down. And he's like on his knee, like just inches away from the field. You could tell he wants to be in there getting these reps. And he him and like the Detroit Lions offense, but they're just cursing each other out. After like you're an effing bum, you're garbage, you're this, you're that, and like he's bringing that energy, but he couldn't get on the field to like back it up. So it's kind of like you're saying your mama, but you can't really do anything about it because you're restricted. So I think that he's champing at the bit to get back out there and to make an impact. And I know I do believe like. If it was up to him, he'd probably be back right now, but he has to trust the doctors, trust this plan because you want to make sure that he's 100%, the
whole season, right?
As opposed to rushing him
back.
Frank's
is what 80%, right? That's Frank Reich's rule.
Yeah, and I think that I do think whenever he comes back, he won't be like 100% right away. No. But if you can get as close a number as possible, it's worth it. And again, in my opinion, you should have won in Houston without him. I think you can go down to Jacksonville, win without him. With the team,
bring him out at the home opener.
You can't afford to have him not have him on the Chiefs. But I will say I suffer from lower back issues, like chronic lower back issues myself. Currently, as we sit here, football's a different beast than me sitting in my garage.
That's the thing.
The lower back is not the ankle. And so my opinion, snap count him for Jacksonville, and then fully play him in the Chiefs because snap counts against the Chiefs. Ain't gonna do us no good.
Because he's got to get one hit under his belt, right?
Exactly.
He's got that Andrew Luck. He's got that mentality. Get a hit.
Because Travis Kelce is going to be running across that middle, right? and he needs to hit him. Because Travis Kelce going for 160 yards. He needs to hit him.
Yes, yeah. I think I'll be excited to talk to him, obviously, and to get an update from him. And again, you just can't replace what he brings as a player and as a leader. And I think that he embodies what like the whole football like mentality is. Like Shaq is crazy. Like he's a little crazy.
Insane. Shaq the maniac.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see. And then personally, just from a fan of the sport itself is like you want to see the best compete against the best. So obviously after a guy who's been through all that, I'm sure his teammates like Zaire saying like, we want him to get right. So he ain't got to get right no more. So whenever he comes back, I'm sure he'll pick up right where he left off and be a big boost to that defense. But the secondary and other pieces have to step up as well because, as you all know, it's not just – and to me, that's the biggest thing that I've not learned but just has been emphasized in switching leagues from the NBA to the NFL is like one guy's impact is just not as significant in football as it is in basketball. Like you can have guys that make plays and are playmakers, but if you think about it, like if you have 3 good players in the NBA – that's a 50-year team. You have 3 good players in the NFL. You got 50 more you got to choose. So I just think that, as much as we talk about all these players and what they can bring, it comes down to how you can come together and how you can put it together. And they have all the pieces. They've got all these all-pro guys, all these pro bowlers. And I think that anything short of making the playoffs would be, in my opinion, a failure of a season.
Yeah, man.
Can't be worse than last year, boys.
Yeah, it can't be worse than last year.
I know y'all was sick. I was at home just thinking like they're not about to, and at that time I was just like watching it just from hey, I'm in Indy, I'll watch what everyone else is watching because I hate to be left out whenever I'm on like Twitter and I'm like, dang, everybody's watching the U.S. Open, everybody's watching this baseball game, everybody's watching the Colts. I don't want to like miss out. So I turned it on, I'm watching, I'm like, there's no way.
It brought back nightmares, man. It brought back nightmares, man. I'll tell you my what.
We've asked them about it. They've downplayed the whole, hey, last season, whatever. But to me, if you truly are a new team, a different team, yes, it's only week 2.
Cut it. Yeah.
You got to go get a win.
Cut the losing streak out. And perfect segue, James. All right. We'll go into what we're predicting score-wise for, week 2. We'll start out with Hayden. What you got for Jacksonville Colts come Sunday?
I didn't get a chance to watch much of the Redskins-Jacksonville game, but I did see that Carson Wentz had a fuck of a game. Now, assuming Trevor Lawrence plays the same, I'm taking the under, but I'm going down again like a field goal or within, if I'm being completely honest. Either we're going to play catch up or we're going to win off a field goal again. I really think that and again, from our history, right? Since they've had Fred Taylor and Jones Drew back in the early 2000s, Jacksonville has given us fits. Their defense is always just there, right? It's always good. It's good enough. It ain't the worst.
Josh Allen, he's a stud.
He's waiting again. Edge pressure. You struggle with that.
100%. If Braden Smith plays the same way, we're gonna be in it for a long day. DB wise, our receivers got to step up. So I'm gonna go around 26, 23, 26, 20-ish, around there, low scoring. Matt Ryan's gonna get the feelers out. But again, and y'all need to remember this as well, Matt Ryan has always had one main receiver to make him successful. Last year was his first year with kind of not that, because Calvin Ridley was out. Kyle Pitts was trying to find his identity in Atlanta. He's had Julio his whole career. Michael Pittman is going to be his Julio. So, James, to your point, that's just how he plays football, right? He picks a guy. He likes a guy. It is up to Michael Pittman at some point to be a superstar, because he wants to be one. Like you said, his personality is there. He's going to be a superstar. And I think against Jacksonville, we'll see him go for over 150 yards. Michael Pittman. But I got 26-23 Colts.
26-23. All right. What you got, James?
I got 24-20 Colts. I think it'll be pretty close. Again, I think they're going to still be working out some of the kinks with the offense. But I do think that they'll be able to, once, punch in on some of those drives a little bit more. I don't think it's going to be an offensive explosion. I just think that it's going to be a pretty normal game. 3 touchdowns and a field goal to get you over the hump. And I think that obviously JT and Pitt are going to be a big part of that. However, I would think from the Colts' perspective, it would be nice if someone else can get in that end zone just to, again, keep some defenses honest. But I don't think it's going to be some super high-scoring affair. They just have to, I think, take care of the ball. Like, you can't have the missed snaps and whatever else was going on, which I expect to get cleaned up. I don't think Matt Ryan's never been a guy in his career that turns it over a ton. So I expect him to go down there, get the monkey off their back, get the curse over with, kind of push last season aside, and be able to, go into the Kansas City week feeling good about yourself because you got to win.
Yeah.
And with that, Van, before you go real quick, if we do not dominate in some facet, either offense or defense, we need that momentum going into the Chiefs game. If we have a barely come out and win type of game, like we may have had against the Texans, if we play the Chiefs, who are guaranteed to score 30 points, we're going to have to match that energy.
That's what segues into mine, man. I'm going Colts 28, maybe Jacksonville 13. I'm expecting some domination on the offense. I am worried about that Josh Allen coming off the edge. But I'll tell you what, I think offensive they're gonna fix it this week. They're gonna click. So I'm gonna go 28-13. So I'm excited about it, man. I mean, it's gonna be a big week, like you said, momentum. Week 2, going into week 3, one game at a time, as Frank always says. 1-0.
That's the biggest cliche. Everyone, and I get it.
I'm like,
thank you.
That
come on,
1% better every day. I'm like,
we need 50% better every single day, Frank. Like, come on. So
I get it. I think I would say the same exact things if I was an athlete. But man, if you hear it enough, you're like, forget all that. Like, I don't care what you say, what you do. I think that if you're a serious football team, if you're a team that wants to make the playoffs, you want to host a playoff game potentially, you got to be able to get the wins you're supposed to and then knock off some teams you're quote unquote not supposed to. And a Jacksonville, game is one you got to get. Yeah,
let's go in there and get it, man. But I think that's time for us today, man. So James, thank you so much for joining, man. I love the insights. Hayden, per usual, man. I'm sure we'll talk here this week, but if y'all want to go give James a follow, man, there's the Twitter on the bottom. Give him some love, Colts Nation. We'll share kind of his info on the bottom of the YouTube page and all that stuff. So like, subscribe. This is Tossing Horseshoes, man. So, hey, shout out the Colts, and we'll be back next week.
Appreciate you, James.
All right, y'all.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.